When outsiders think of Pacific Islands, they think of a slice of heaven, palm trees and white sands, friendly people and smiling faces. But many people living in the islands are now facing up to paradise lost as they struggle to find ways to sustainably manage their fragile natural resources.
Well, as we know, the Pacific Island, their needs and aspirations are changing. They're changing their lifestyle. They're consuming more products imported from elsewhere, things which do not biodegrade as easily, things that essentially pile up in your backyard.
Covering an area that's 3 times the size of China and almost 1/6 of the Earth's surface, the Pacific is huge, but only 2% of it is inhabited, and most of it is water. Modernization has its advantages for these developing countries, but with limited land and growing populations, it's also put huge pressures on these precious natural resources.
Because water is so important in our lives. Water is life. We cannot be without clean drinking water.
I drink the water from the bottle.
Why don't you drink the water from the tap?
Yucky.
There doesn't seem to be a shortage of water in the Pacific, but changing the way people treat it, the ways that waste, fisheries and freshwater resources are managed, is key to the livelihood of the Pacific's people. It will also ensure that the Pacific doesn't become more famous for its rubbish dumps than its postcard pretty beaches.
Well, I guess because we are still thinking that we are in the 50s, in the 40s, that we still treat imported waste as organic, that we think that it will eventually go away. But we realize now that it never will go away.
This is where the International Waters Project comes in. The big question is how to promote change in communities that are diverse, spread over a huge area, without infrastructure, and in some cases, where people aren't even convinced of the need for change.
I didn't really understand what this whole project was all about.
Through the International Waters Program, we've really sought to build local capacities to address these global challenges.
The practical things is for the International Water Project and we at SPREP is to convince them that it's in their interest to go through with the behavioral change, and that they own up to continuing and actually changing the way they have been living, because it's in their interest to do so, to be able to say to themselves, we have it within ourselves to find the solutions. Now that we have the information, now we as a community will progress this.
Before these people engage and participate, they need to understand what the problem is and how it affects them. And when we get into a stage of them engaging in understanding the problem, they must also engage in coming up with solutions. Very realistic solution where they can participate in implementing it.
One way of helping people understand the impact of poor waste management was to illustrate it in dollar terms.
It's a way of basically showing people that if these environmental problems aren't actually addressed, actually worse off in real terms, in monetary terms. And I think somebody said earlier today that there's no votes in waste. And if people see that actually they're losing real money because these environmental problems aren't being addressed, then there actually are votes in waste and environmental problems, because people actually want to protect their purses. They want to stay better off.
There are 14 pilot communities across the region that are trying to improve the way they manage their freshwater, waste, or coastal fisheries resources. Each project is run by a national coordinator from the participating country.
My name is Leonie Moho.
My name is Yorne Fakaos.
My name is Kileso Masaro.
Getting a lot of attention.
Sorry, I work for International Water Program, but I'm the coordinator for Tuvalu?
I mean, I hate to say it, but
My name is Sandeep Singh, and I work at the Department of Environment in Fiji as the National Coordinator for the International Waters Program.
The national coordinators as a network are a very important asset for the region. And I think if one of the remaining gifts that the IWP project could leave and that UNDP has participated in is this network, I look at them as missionaries for the region, that they need to take their lessons learned, their experience, their hard knocks, and broadcast it to the region and say to their other colleagues in other islands that are working at the grassroots level, this is what I learned, this is what I was successful at doing, and for them to become the evangelical environmental leaders at the grassroots level. That, I think, would be an enormous contribution that they have and that they speak from their heart. No UN bureaucrat can speak and share that message in the way that they can do it.
The aim of the pilots is to not just change things locally, but to provide a model for others to change when they see the positive results at a national, regional, and even global level. Kiribati is a tiny Pacific atoll more densely populated than Tokyo. You can imagine the effect bad waste management has on such an intensely populated place. The problem is made worse by Kiribati's porous sands. Waste from toilets, animals, cars, agrochemicals and detergents leaches through the sand into the waterlands below, which is where the community draws its fresh water from.
We're trying to reduce the waste, so we're trying to improve the waste collection system and change the people's behavior in how they sort their waste.
A real challenge is changing people's understanding. Many people still swim, bathe, and collect shellfish from the local lagoon despite high levels of contamination. And others have trouble making connections between what happens above ground and what they draw up from below, unless they can actually see the effects with their own eyes. Importantly, it is about showing people how they could change and giving them meaningful incentives to do so, like village composting competitions and cash in return for recycling.
We're trying to get people used to using this biodegradable plastic bag. We call it a green bag, and for people to put in all their unworthy inorganic waste so that it is properly disposed of in the landfill. We also have banana circle, and this is a simple composting method where households can just build and just keep chucking all their organic rubbish from around their household compounds into it. And then we also have this, we call it Kaukimangi, which is a recycling project. Actually, it is now privatized, where people can now get their trash, their aluminum cans and all these inorganic rubbish, PET bottles, also wet batteries. They can return it to this recycling unit and they get cash out of it.
Each IWP project has selected community champions to act as role models for other members in the community to follow as they see how to change and as they see the benefits of changing.
Ngayon na rin bunga ng takaysag ngayon. Inang bunga na ba itararo yay dari kim kia ko kaysag na katuwa pong kuyak ameng ya ke bari nampana anami amraki ya maroka ki ko namin. Dari kina kumanga pon kana wana bare wande banana metira aroka mki tikabis itabane ko yagi sire ke amani me ko ipon bunga na kon dapat me dikito amusu na si may ka warek nakakintinanu ngani kay kangaseme yagi ba ya kaberen sin katuwa pong ti.
By the end of 2005, the program had achieved a 50% reduction in waste volumes in the pilot community. At the end of one green bag competition, 10 tons of organic waste was collected, raising pride and confidence as other communities became curious about the stack of bags, and the government is looking at using the same scheme to manage waste on a national level.
It is really hard because you are not just working with papers, and you are working with people, and you try to convince them. So, and they have their own agendas, like working with the Tarawa Urban Council, which is the main waste collector in Kiribati. They have their own agendas, and it's not just waste that they are working on. So you try to produce some benefits for them to see, and then okay, perhaps we should help you, and then that's that sort of thing. That's what makes it hard. And then we have the Ministry of Environment, where they are the key people for monitoring and for getting all this system coordinated. But they also have the agenda, and then we are down below where the ministers is up there, and we have to find our way up to get all these messages, and they have to see the benefits, why we should be doing this. So that's what a bit of a challenge.
The goal of the IWP pilot project in Vanuatu is to give the community ways to sustainably manage their own marine resources. A key problem is that Vanuatu has shifted to a cash-based society, and a major source of cash and livelihood, the land crabs that Crab Bay is famous for, are declining because of overfishing.
Yes, me sabe talam se before time mi fly out los molelan lo rupif kam stab lo loni. First time mi fly stabe plante krabi wo kwa lo rot yawe. Lo house lo lonia lo side lo rot ol krabo lika kai le kloyu. Gol pat lo pusya. We come down lo solora plante. Now ya we look se krabi na mogat.
Yet, despite a taboo placed on a collection area by village chiefs in an effort to maintain a crab population, women continued to collect the crabs. For many of the families, they felt they had no alternative.
Bastante mi harema mi se olti poli leke one plant lo putuma pa tambulo heriaya lo mi harem se mi harem inokut lo hat lo mi harem inokut from se crab no mona e mi also one meat lo mi.
With the help of 30 community facilitators, the IWP set up community meetings to get buy-in from villagers to protect their resource.
We had been able to train 26 local facilitators, the local community youth, and they had been going through the training process of the international waters. They had gone back to their villages and becoming advocates of resource management in their villages, and unable to motivate their local people to understand the problems and become involved in the project itself.
A key achievement was recognizing that the taboo wasn't working because women were not involved in decision-making, even though they were the ones who collected the crabs and made decisions on how to spend the household income. For many, it was a choice between obey the taboo and don't collect crabs, or disobey the taboo and be able to afford things like school fees.
Normally the men are the ones that are involved in the decision making, and very less input from the women, but through the International Waters Project, the women are now becoming involved in the decision making. So a big success in a sense that the women in the communities are empowered to participate in the decision making.
Yumi sabe se workshop take place, mo yumi ol community ol se mi pla ol community come back lo one each villages pla mi kem awareness lo ol people pla yumi na we ali sabe na oli sabe na we pla tambo.
Leah and her team came up with some innovative ways of getting the message that saving the crabs meant preserving their livelihood across, including engaging a well-known local theatre group, One Small Bag.
More, look out, Bionic kayu. You know, you start. You want to tell him with him, because we're so deep, no talent. With him, no. Chun, say what we did. No. All mama. You not cry, bro.
People felt empowered through being involved. They had so much fun, they even set up their own theatre company. The aim was to get people to act in ways that ensure that Crab Bay can continue to live up to its name for future generations.
Sustainability is to build ownership in a community. Means you have to build a sense of ownership at the community at a very low cost that can be uptake by the communities, and also at the national level, see where appropriate, where you can pin the activities of the project into existing activities and share the responsibilities with the stakeholders that are involved across the sector.
WP ikamin inside mo ikami kema winesa tok lo mi imekem se mi look save se lo place ya we oli putoma tapulo hem emi kat pull up crabs tapulo hem.
Ka eke ia vai piriri, ka eke ia vai parara, ka eke ia vai tia tie, ka eke ia vai pikira, ano mai rā koe toa, ei a tūmama, i ngā mata o te taunga, ie koko!
Clean fresh water is crucial to life. In the Cook Islands main township Avarua, on the main island of Rarotonga, the water supply comes from a catchment area in the hills above the town. The water is currently untreated and threatened with contamination by unrestricted access of people and animals in the catchment area.
Tuesday, about 14 of them came up here. And one of the tourists came to me, asked me if there's any toilets down up here. I said, no. I said, I'm sorry, we don't use it. We didn't go to the toilet. What we do is we just like a builders. Oh, the plant is up here. Before we come up to our valley, plant taro, we always go to the toilet first.
A common infectious condition from contaminated water is diarrhea. And tragically in the Pacific, it's even become a leading cause of death, particularly amongst children under 5. People drink bottled water or employ elaborate boiling and filtering systems to try to ensure their water is safe to drink.
I drink the water from the tap. If there's no water in the bottle, I'll go and fill it up and put it in the freezer.
When we arrived here, the first thing I found that we didn't like drinking the water here, and my children started having sores and all that. So I started boiling our water, and it turned out to be all right. Now we've been boiling our water ever since.
For the IWP's national coordinator, Tauraki Raya, the issue was how to find a cost-effective way to manage the catchment area. Firstly, he had to get the community on side and convince the landowners and users that it was a good idea to restrict access. He enlisted the help of several community champions to spread the word.
If we're going to do this project in Takuene, we can't just go in there and call Joe and his friends to come, because it's quite about 800 people in this village. So we have to get this organization. So at this stage, the activities in this village are more coordinated, with not with the activation of the whole community structure, but with the appointment of a village leader. So every activity that happens in the village goes through this community leader. And the other one is the establishment of a core group committee. We have a committee of 24, right about 24 when we started off, but now we have a committee of 12. And in this 12, there's 4 or 5 that's really committed. They've been there from the beginning to now. As you may be aware that working with community, you know, there's a lot of repetition. You got to say the same thing over and over again, and so forth. So these people have sort of persevered through that, listening to the same thing. So now it's actually them that's standing up to the community and telling them, look, this is what we're doing. It makes a big difference if we, as we are seen as government employees, explain things to the community, and they explaining to the community. When we say things to the community, you know, they look at you one eye and they, yeah, what are you up to, sort of thing. But now, when these guys stand up and talk to the community, you know, it doesn't take long, you know, oh yeah, you know, they just ask that kind of thing. So I'm really happy with this core group. And finally, out of the last 2 years meeting, we have developed the management plan. Our meetings have been recorded. As I said before, we talked about this women's structure organization and the way they do things. So all these meetings were recorded, and all we did was gave it to a consultant, and he put all these meetings together and came up with a management plan. So giving back to the community, you know, it gives them some level of ownership, because it was, you know, we just told them that, look, these are the things we discussed, and say, oh yeah. And you know, they're proud because they are part of you know, the people that put it together.
You could already see that the root causes were there. People just didn't know how to go back to identifying what they were. You needed to give them a little bit more time and help to try and identify those root causes. But once they got it all done, then the solutions were easier to pick out, and those that are usually sustainable.
Women used to be keepers of the catchment area, but modernization drew them away from that traditional role. One of TAW's goals is to get them re-involved.
Okay, we can't really get women to come and do the work today, because the whole organization sort of collapsed after factories came to Rara and women got the job, and you know, they don't care about these things anymore. So we'd love for women to do it, because I believe that women do things better than men. Eh? I mean, I hate to say it, but
Another IWP initiative was to assess the economic value of protecting the water catchment.
And they're interested that they can see that this information is useful, and it also grabs the attention of donors. If you can go to a donor and you can say, look, we're losing this many million a year because we're not protecting our watersheds or because we're not better managing waste.
a lot of people say go straight to the treatment plant. But if we go straight to the treatment plant, then anyone can do whatever they like in the catchment, and that won't help us in terms of costs in treating the water.
One thing that motivated me was thinking that I am getting old and I've got children and grandchildren coming in, and I don't want them to drink this water. I want what's best for them.
One of the aims of the pilot programs was to show the way for other communities, nationally and regionally, that IWP has already made a difference across village borders.
It has benefited the community, and it has benefited the country because of the views of the community in a management plan for them to put forward that to government. And government has to consider what has been prepared under the management plan by the community themselves. So we've seen this project again benefiting the whole of the community, and the support from the communities around Rarotonga and again in the outer islands, they have supported that.
But the momentum the pilots have created needs to be kept going if they're to have widespread impact on the Pacific.
Somebody or a private sector or some sort of mechanism that could take this work forward. One of the lessons learned is that we realized during the process that some of the institutions we are working with, they really don't have the capacity to do to take this work forward. And we have fear that if we leave things like this, we may fall back to square one.
Regional approach and regional context can also be useful because certain types of works can be done much more cost effectively. As we know, under the Pacific Plan, there is a greater push for regionalism and helping each other where it makes sense. And that's one of the things that this particular work will do, is to provide those kinds of frameworks and methodologies that can be used across the board without necessarily having to reinvent the wheel.
I think the big challenge now is to see how these local initiatives can be self-sustaining and how national governments, with their limited resources, can somehow provide support. And it can, in fact, be not necessarily money-driven. It can be providing them with the legislative framework, the permission to be empowered to organize locally.
The main successes now is you hardly now see the rubbish on the road. You drive along from the airport to the capital of Kiribati, which is Pairiki. You hardly now can see any lying aluminum cans or PET bottles, even plastic bags. It is quite amazing.